Good morning, guys. Right. So is it visible? Okay. So good morning. Good morning, everyone. So today we'll be discussing one of the important chapter as yesterday also mentioned in the group. Why? Because these phenomena at the same time, these theories behind water transport system are very important and will be connecting to other chapters as well. Especially the concept of water potential would be a little confusing actually. Okay, so I have certain. I'll show some demo also actually. Okay, while we go ahead within this class, I'll show demo, right, of imbibition. Okay, um, so in this we'll try to address few things in the board as well. Okay, yeah, shall we start? Is it clear? Can you see the board? Is that clear? No? Is that clear, guys? It's not glaring, right? You let me know so that I will start. My voice is audible and you can see the board, right, without glaring. Okay. So let's begin. So if anyone has issue, please let me know here. Okay. So let's begin with I told now this class can be it is the theory within this class theories within this chapter would be more and we need to go a little slow to really understand and empathize this emphasize those contents. So I probably if we complete within this hour mostly will not be completing, so we will be using the 2 to 3 1 hour only for today. Okay, for this plant physiology is concerned, daily we will have 2 hours photosynthesis, respiration, because these are all we have to go and explain few things, otherwise it will not make more sense. Okay, let's move to the actual topics. Fine. So first, when we talk about the transportation, right? So for the transportation of this transportation in plants is concerned, we will be talking about different theories that are involved in this, right? In that, water potential is one of the confusing concept. If you guys remember and if you guys really understood that, well and good. Otherwise, let's see today. Okay. So, good morning. Good morning. So today we'll be uh, the outline of this few topics for this 1 hour. I kept in a PPT. You can go through that. Okay. Parallel, you can go. But let me first complete this. After 1 hour, you can go through that. Okay, fine. So let's move to the important aspects of this lesson. That what exactly this lesson speaks about. So if you see in this lesson, right, we speak about transport of substances, right? Will be talking about both water as well as we'll be talking about the other solute particles, other substances, right? So what is a means of transportation? For that matter, the movement, we will be talking about one of the important definition here, that is translocation. So translocation is nothing but, you know, if you consider a whole tree or a plant, the contents, nothing but the water contents and mineral contents, right from the soil, it is reaching to the top of the plant. At the same time, if you consider this, so if this is a plant, if this is a plant, so the root system is present here, and the minerals and other things which are present here, they are able to move upward, anti-gravity, right? At the same time, you have branches, and the branches have leaves, and leaves is a source of food material, and that food material has to be transported to different parts of the plant. At the same time, if you see in few stem and root modifications, where they will store the food material. Food is something prepared in the leaves, and it is stored in the roots or modified stems. So the food has to actually reach to these areas, right? So here, along with the organic matter, water, and other minerals, has to be moving from one place to other place, right? Longer distances. So that system of movement of these substances in plant, we call it as translocation. That too, that happens through xylem and phloem. So let's take this red as xylem and blue as phloem. Okay. So through xylem and phloem, this translocation takes place. Okay. So this is just a simple what do you say? Simple definition, translocation, right? So here we'll be talking about how these organic molecules are transported, how these inorganic nutrients are transported. At the same time, minerals and water will be talking about. Even if you see the plant growth and development lesson, right, the hormones has to be transported from the source of the production at the same time to the target organ like fruit, etc. Right? So for the maturity. So how they are transported. So that's what this lesson forms basis for all the remaining lessons of the plant physiology, right? If you wanted to understand the photosynthesis is affected by even transpiration. We need to understand. If we wanted to understand transpiration, we need to understand how water would actually move through this xylem and phloem, right? That's what I started with this tissues and etc. So that you will be cells and xylem etc. So that you will be understanding better, right? So let's move further about the means of transport. What are the different means of transport we have, right? So when we talk about the means of transport, we have two different means of transport, right? One is shorter distances transport, and one is longer distances transport. Okay, so what are the shorter distances transport? Can you put it in comment section? What are the phenomena you see in what are the processes that does involved in shorter distances transport? It means within the cell or cell to cell, right? There would be transfer of these molecules. So this is shorter distances, but from this is completely a tree, right? So this is from root system to shoot system. This entire transport is called longer transport system, right? Long distance transport system. So what does this short distance transport system would be including? What are the things that we include in short distance transportation? Any can you recollect? So what are the components that and what are the processes does, even in chemistry also you have these concepts, right? diffusion, osmosis, etc. Right? So here, without wasting much time, I'll give the answer. So here, if you see this, is anyone is trying to give answer? No? Okay, so let's move on. So you please try to recollect, okay, what I'm talking about. So we are talking about the transport of substances, and that can be of two types, okay. So transport of substances can be of two types. Right? Transport of substances can be of two types. One is short distance, and one is long distance. So in the short distance, we'll be talking about passive transport and active transport, right? We'll be talking about passive transport and active transport. Have you guys remember what do you mean by passive transport? Passive transport and active transport. Okay, let's move on then. So if you see this passive transport and active transport, so within this shorter distances, right, you'll be seeing, right, we have passive and active transport. So within this passive transport, again you will be having, here it is a simple diffusion actually. It means from cell to cell, right, these components will be simply diffused based upon certain criteria. Okay, this passive transport which can be of simple diffusion, right? So that can occur by simple diffusion. So you would have studied already in 11th standard what is diffusion. So if you see this diffusion, it helps in shorter distance transport of molecules where there is no energy is required. Okay, so by simple diffusion from higher concentration to lower concentration, it will be transferred. For example, I already shown in class also. If you take any scent bottle, right, it has higher concentration, and if you spray here, these molecules would diffuse to the lower concentration areas, right? Higher concentration to lower concentration. So it occurs through simple diffusion. But if you see in this passive transport, especially simple diffusion, where there is no energy expenditure takes place in this. So here what we have to highlight is energy. So energy is not required in simple diffusion. Okay, and there is another type of passive transport, that is facilitated diffusion. In the name itself it is there, facilitated. Now we teachers are facilitating the subject, right? We are trying to facilitate the subject, right? So like that, this transport by facilitated diffusion has two important aspects. One is through carrier transport system. It means within the cell wall or cell membrane, plasma membrane, you will be having proteins which actually allow certain type of molecules to move inside those protein channels, right? So those carrier protein or transporters, right? Here what we get is here facilitated. So facilitated diffusion. So in this facilitated diffusion, what we will talk about is, in facilitated diffusion we will be having carrier proteins. So within the walls, if you consider this is a wall, this is board, right? So like this a board, you will be having different proteins embedded in the plasma membrane, so that this water molecules and the gas molecules can actually easily transfer. So in this type of transport, carrier proteins bind to the substance and transfer it to the other side of the membrane. For example, so now we are talking about shorter distances. So we are talking about what we are talking about, shorter distance movement, transport, right? So within which we already talked about simple diffusion. Simple diffusion where energy is not at all required. So here energy not required. Okay. So this will come under passive. Okay, passive transport. So within the passive transport we have simple diffusion and we have facilitated facilitated diffusion. I think it's not writing properly. I'll change it. So in the facilitated diffusion, again we have two types again. Okay, so facilitated diffusion by some proteins. So you will be finding these proteins which are embedded in cell membrane. So if you consider this is a protein, right, you will find these are lipid molecules. Okay, these are proteins. So if you consider this is the membrane, okay, so this is outside and inside. So during facilitated diffusion, what happens is the molecules from outside to inside, it will be transported by this protein molecules, facilitated by this protein molecules. Here also there is no, we don't require any energy. Okay, so that's why we call it as passive. Okay, so these are protein carriers which are present in the plasma membrane. Okay, so that either inside it would be transferring substances into the other side of the membrane, either in or out, right? So within the passive transport, we are talking within the shorter distance transport, we are talking about one of the type of shorter distance transport, that is passive transport, and we have one more, that is active transport also. So let's finish the passive transport and then we will come to the active transport. Okay, so within the passive transport we have simple diffusion where across the cell membrane the molecules would be simply diffused, right, and where there is no energy is required. And the second one is facilitated diffusion, can be of two types, where one occurs through the carrier proteins and other would occur through the protein channels. Okay, these are carrier proteins which are, it means they flip actually, flip flop. For example, are you able to follow? Are you able to follow? Please let me know whether you guys are able to follow or not. Yeah, fine. So everything is clear, na? Yeah, fine. So here, okay, fine, great. So here, if you consider this is a carrier protein, okay, which is, assume that my hands are plasma membrane. So they are embedded in the plasma membrane like this. Okay. Okay. So assume that this is the protein. Okay, and assume that this cap is the molecule that needs to be transported inside or outside. Assume this upper side is outside the membrane. Okay, so if I show like this, is it clear? So let's assume that the cell membrane is like that and you have a carrier protein like this. Okay, and this is outside towards you, it is outside towards me, it is inside the cell cytoplasm. So what happened is this carrier proteins would actually flip flop. This is a molecule it needs to transfer, sir. It will come and it will bind to this carrier protein, right? And then it will flip like this. Then it will be released inside the cell. Are you able to understand? Did you got the point? So this is how the carrier proteins may flip flop. So it will be attached, right? So this is the plasma membrane, and then once it will flips, it goes inside, right? So this molecule will be released inside and it will be moving inside. Like that, the inside molecule can be coming outside the membrane based upon the concentration. As simple as that. Right? So in this passive transport or facilitated diffusion by carrier proteins, again doesn't require any sort of energy. Okay. Yeah. So let's move to the next aspect. That is, yeah. Next, within this facilitated diffusion, we have channel proteins. Okay, channel proteins means they act similar, but it means similar in the sense they will be present inside the membrane like this. So let's talk about the next type, that is channel proteins. So next type is channel proteins. So in this channel proteins, what happens is these are lipid bilayer, right? So in this lipid bilayer, what you will have is you will be having this proteins embedded like this. Okay. So once the protein is embedded like this, right? What happens is molecules, the ions in this channel proteins, we have two types actually. One is ion channels and other one is porins. You would have slightly getting the idea. Okay, last year we studied about this porins. You would have heard somewhere aquaporins, right? So here porins and ion channels. In you would have remembered that ion channels we talked about even in even in axolemma of neuron also we talked about this ion channels, right? So here these ions will be transported through this channels. So this channel proteins can be of two types. One is ion channels and one more is porins. So ion channels are generally require more than one subunit to form a membrane passageway. So it requires more than one. So within this plasma membrane, you will be finding many actually. Okay, and then we have the next aspect is porins. So porins are examples of one of the example is aquaporin. If you see where aqueous channels that accelerate passive diffusion of small hydrophilic molecules across the membrane. So here you need to understand that this hydrophilic molecules cannot really cannot really pass to this plasma membrane, because plasma membrane is made up of this hydrophilic heads and hydrophilic tails of this lipid molecules. You would have known the properties of lipid bilayer, right? So it is very difficult to allow pass these molecules individually if there are no porins. So these porins would actually transport some aqueous molecules which they can easily pass to this aquaporins. So with this we completed this passive transport. So with the passive transport we talked about transport by diffusion, that is simple diffusion, and transport by facilitated diffusion. We have two things. One is carrier protein. This is the carrier protein which flip flops, right? Which flip flops because it will be it will bind to the substance and it will flip flop. And the next one is channel proteins, These are channel proteins. These channel proteins again can be of two types. One is ion channels, like sodium, potassium ions, and other ions. If you see, if you really remember this sarcolemma in the, this muscles, muscles, we talked about how this calcium channels will be there, how sodium potassium channels will be there, right? So ion channels will be right across this membrane, and then porins, which actually which actually diffuses this aqueous molecules, right? So which accelerates the passive diffusion of these molecules across the plasma membrane, which is highly impossible for a molecule to just pass into this plasma membrane, where, because these are all hydrophilic in nature. Is that clear? So with this we completed the passive transport. Okay. So what is your role is, you need to go through and you need to go through the textbook, and you need to know that where exactly this active transport and where exactly this passive transport will occur. So that you need to focus. Okay. So this is about the facilitated diffusion, right? So within the facilitated diffusion, again we'll be talking about a few things, right? That is how this for example, how these molecules would move. Like, we will be talking about three important aspects, right? In facilitated diffusion, we'll be talking about three important aspects. One is uniport, antiport, symport. Okay, how these will occur. So that is one of the important aspects, because in this uniport, symport, and antiport, you may get this match the following questions, or you may get the correct or incorrect statements. So you shouldn't be ignoring. So far, is it clear? Passive transport. Once if you clear, we can go ahead with the types of movement of molecules. What is the direction of movement of the molecules? We can talk about. Is it clear? So when we talk about the direction, there are three different directions these molecules would move, diffuse, through facilitated diffusion. So we can start that. Okay. So shall we proceed? Okay. So within this, what about others, ma? Are you able to follow? Right? Yeah, great. Fine. So within this facilitated diffusion, right, we have three systems where the protein mediated transport, nothing but this facilitated diffusion. Protein mediated transport means either carrier protein or channel proteins. But how the molecules would be moving, right? How they are moving? What are the modes of movement through these proteins? So that can be of following. One is uniport, right? And one more is where uniport, and we have symport and antiport. Okay. So if you see here, what is the differences between these three? Okay, they may give statements regarding uniport, and they may confuse you with different statements. So how do you remember? Uni means unicorn, or uni is one, single, right? So single, you'll be finding a protein molecule right across the membrane. So this is, if you consider this is membrane, okay, this is membrane, lipid membrane, and one type of molecule would be transported in single direction through the carrier protein. Okay, so only one type of it's like you going to the movie. Okay, you individually going to the movie from Gobi Arch to Gion. Okay, in single direction. Okay, in the single direction, only one type of molecule, only you alone going. Is that clear? So what is the next type? Symport. What is the difference in symport? So if you see this symport, okay, in this symport, you will be finding you and your friend is going for a movie or an exam. For an exam. So there are two different types of molecules. They are moving in single direction. Again from Gobi Arch to somewhere, okay, Gobi bus stand, whatever it is. So in single direction, two molecules, import, both molecules cross the plasma membrane in the same direction. Is that clear? Okay, and there is an antipode. So if you see this antipode, what you can understand through antipode. So we have this. So during this antipode, okay, your friend is coming to your home and you're going to your friend's house. Okay, but in the same same path, in the sense like the same road, that is through the same protein, but different directions. So if you take this, is A is moving in one direction, B is moving in other direction. B is moving in other direction. So both molecules move in opposite direction. So this makes this antipode, sympode, right? Anti means again, different direction, right? Both the molecules cross in a different direction. Like that, we have three different types of modes of movements. Okay, so that's need to understand: unipode, antipode, and sympode. Is that clear? Is that clear, ma? Okay. So once we complete this, see, so far we didn't enter into the tough part. Okay, these are very easy to grasp, but there is a tough part coming in the next one. So far what we are studying, short distance movement of the molecules, and then we talked about passive transport, and in passive transport we talked about simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion types, and the mode of transport of molecules, and how these molecules would transport: unipode, sympode, and antipode. And then now we will be talking about active transport. So the next aspect is active transport. So what is my active transport here? So in active transport, you will be finding that energy is needed. Why? Because if you see that same lipid molecules, lipid bilayer, okay, and draw like this, okay, lipid bilayer, and you have a protein, okay, carrier protein inside, and here what happens is this ATP, sorry, so there is a requirement of energy. So this ATP, right, eventually converts into ADP plus inorganic phosphate. It means there is a consumption of energy, right? So the energy is consumed here. So to function or to allow those sort of molecules during the active transport, what happens is this pumps, use energy molecules like ATP, and eventually they convert into ADP. So this active transport actually uses the energy to pump the molecules. And why it need energy? It's a simple common sense that there is something, in previous passive transport, if you see, they are moving from simple diffusion concept. It means from higher concentration to lower concentration. But if you see in active transport, these molecules move against the concentration gradient. It means, for example, concentration gradient is something like this. So there are 10 molecules, 100 molecules, and 1000 molecules. There is a difference in the concentration is keep on increasing, solute concentration, right? So these molecules needs to transfer against the concentration gradient, right? So this is higher concentration, this is lower concentration. So in simple passive diffusion, they can easily move from the higher to lower. This is easy actually. So this is easy, right? So higher to lower is easy. But lower to higher is going against the concentration gradient. It means inside there are a lot of molecules already, concentration, but these molecules are needed. So those needs to be pumped into the inside the cytoplasm, or they need to pump out. If you remember our our membrane dynamics of the axial lemma, we talked about this proton and potassium. This sodium and potassium pumps. So when the concentration of sodium is high, again how they are transported, how this concentration, the movement of ions are taking place against the concentration of against the concentration gradient we talk. So hence what's happening here? So here the molecules are moving actually against the concentration gradient. So there are many molecules here. So these guys are moving. That's why they need energy to these guys within the cell system through the cell membrane. So these pumps are proteins that use energy to carry these substances across the cell membrane. Okay, and these pumps can even transport substances from lower concentration to higher concentration. So this type of movement we call it as uphill. So uphill transport you will be finding in active transport where energy is required, right? So uphill. So you can imagine, right? So my simple question is, there is a hill like this, okay, mountain or hill, okay. This is, let's assume this is point A and this is point B, okay. Which would be the more energy consuming movement, either A to B or B to A? B to A or A to B would be the more consuming, energy consuming or time taking process. A to B is more time consuming and energy consuming, or B to A? Which would be more easy and which would be more difficult? It's a simple logic, right? Simple analogy I'm giving actually. So to understand the concept of uphill, okay, uphill transport. So yeah, can you tell? A to B movement is easy or B to A movement is easy? We have to move from A to B. This is a hill, right, or a mountain. Which consumes more energy? For example, you are on a bike, okay. So there is a slope like this, okay. What we will do? Funny thing, we'll switch off the motor, right? So easily without consuming petrol or energy, will be easily coming into the from the slope. But if you want to climb the slope, we need to put a lot of gears, right? We have to go to the final gear or the third gear, whatever it is fit, and we will increase the acceleration so that we will use a lot of energy and petrol fuel, isn't it? Are you able to follow? Yeah, no. Can you please answer the question? A to B is difficult or B to A? It's okay if it is right or wrong. Don't judge yourself. Don't be too critical. Okay, right or wrong, just say. That's it. Uh, B to A is easy. Yeah. Okay, great. So at least if one or two answers, then I can understand that yeah, video is going. Otherwise, is it paused like this? I'm getting those many doubts actually. Anyways, so that's what we talk about the facilitated diffusion. So facilitated diffusion, which transports the molecules across the concentration gradient. It means against the concentration gradient. So this is what we call it as uphill movement of the molecules. So why we call uphill here? Because here the transporting molecules to higher concentration areas, right? So from lower to higher concentration area. So that's why we call it as uphill transport. So this transport rate actually reaches a maximum when all protein transporters are being used or saturated. It means, for example, you have one protein channel or carrier protein in the membrane, right? And there are, for example, you have 1000 molecules needs to transport it into this cell, right? So for 1000 molecules to transport into the cell, it may require a lot of time, right? The rate means what exactly? Every time what we talk is, so whenever we say rate is in terms of time, right? So time t, right? So if you have only one door, for example, imagine that one room has only one door and there are 100 people are waiting to get inside the room. Okay, but if we then what happens to the rate of their entry into the room? It would be less. But if I arrange 10 doors into the same room, so 10 people can come at a time. So it increases the rate of diffusion or rate of transport of these 100 people into this room would be very easy. It means rate of diffusion would be very high. So when we really use all these proteins, so especially in NCERT they use the term saturated. Saturation means completely used. So we have to use all the carrier proteins which are present in the cell membrane. Then it will increase the rate of active transport, right? So that is about this active and passive transport, and I hope you understood, right? So if you see this in NCERT, they already gave one. I think you would have accessed the PPT. I have mentioned one table from NCERT. If you have books also, you can directly look into it. So you have simple diffusion, facilitated transport, and active transport. There are differences. Okay, these differences. This box is very important for match the following or correct or incorrect statements. Okay, why? Because they may ask simple diffusion doesn't require they require highly selective. So this simple diffusion takes place only by selecting certain type of molecules. So it's not true. So like that you need to actually read this table. So facilitated transport requires special membrane proteins, yes, but simple diffusion doesn't require any membrane proteins, no. Likewise, you see which of the characteristic, for example, facilitated transport, where uphill transport will not be there, requires ATP energy will not be there, right? That's what they came under. The facilitated and simple diffusion came under passive transport, short distance transport, passive transport. Why? Because uphill transport and requires ATP energy is no for simple diffusion and facilitated transport, but it is S in the sense it is required for active transport. So with this simple tabular form, you can really assess the entire three different types of diffusion. But I given in more detail so that you will be, while reading now, you will be really enjoying the subject. So this transport in plants is concerned is one of my favorite topics, and especially because this is what makes more interesting subject. This botany is more interesting when we speak about this physiological aspects, how these molecules will move, right? Which is beyond our imagination, right? We can really relate to our circulation and all, etc. But when we talk about plants, it's quite impossible to really relate. But that's what I'm explaining in this way so that we can really relate. That's what I'm giving examples or mnemonics or analogy of allowing some persons into the room, right? So 10 doors, so it increases the rate of active transport. So that is the aspect, right? A to B consumes, very good guys. Look, right, very good, right. So this in till here, what we talked about is this. So active transport and the other transport. So what about others? The 5 members are active now. They went to sleeping mode or what? Okay, fine. The next aspect of this, the lesson what we will talk about is so when we talk about water, what are the different mechanisms? Plant water relationships, right? When you talk about plant water relationships, these are all self-explanatory. So how water plays a major important role in the plants. So we have different types of water plant water relationships. Like it maintains the temperature in the plant tissues, even it affects the transpiration, seed germination, and respiration, and it acts as a reactant in some chemical reactions, metabolic reactions, and even it maintains the turgidity, shape of the cell and the plant, especially the plants. So that because of the turgidity only, you will have a certain constant shape in the shape of the plants. I will talk about what is turgid and etc. And even it acts as a medium for the absorption and translocation of certain substances, right? And even it helps in photosynthesis, to fix the CO2 oxidation. It involves in oxidation reactions as well. So this plant water relationships, you will be having incorrect or correct statements, so you should be focusing on this. Okay, so next comes the important and most confusing concept, or most difficult concept in this lesson, that is water potential. And if you guys really remember what is water potential, can you guys tell what is water potential? Water potential, can anyone explain? Just simple definition or something or the other. Water potential, did you guys can recollect what is water potential? So water potential, simply equation is given, right? So what is it? Water potential is equal to the solute potential and pressure potential, right? So what about all these terms? What are all these terms actually? So if you see this water potential, we will be resembling in psi, right? Psi, symbol psi. Okay. So with this, after water potential, we'll talk about osmosis and even special diffusion, plasmolysis, and one of the special diffusion, that is imbibition. So with the imbibition, we will be entering into the long distance transport of the molecules. So before, when we talk about this imbibition, right? So it is a special type of diffusion, right? Where the water is absorbed by solids, right? So here, before we really understand, we really, I have some demo to show. Okay, these are basil seeds, sabja seeds. Okay, you would have been using in water also, right? For drinking purpose, to cool down our heat, etc. Right? So if you see here, so sabja seeds, right? I want to show this demo. Afterwards, I will go to the water potential. Okay, so if you see here, so these are the sabja seeds. You already know they are dried, right? Right, they are dried, right? So are you able to see? So what I'm doing is, you can really see here. So this is a water, right? So these are the dried seeds, and you know how these seeds would actually swell. So within no time, you can see that the seeds would be actually swelling. So they would be, these are the seeds which actually absorb the water molecules. So the seeds are solids, right? So this is special type of diffusion of the water molecules. So let's wait for 2 minutes. Within 1 minute, you can see that the seeds would actually bulge. So that's what one of the important aspect of this imbibition. So you can see that the seed's volume would be enormously increasing, right? So if you see this, the seeds would actually take up this entire water and eventually they bulge. And even the dry wood also, it can be bulged. That's what in previous, when the machines or other inventory is not really invented, right? What they used to do is they used to break the rocks by using this dry wood. So they used to put the dry wood in small cuts and right, and then they used to put the dry wood and they used to pour the water. So once the dry wood swallows, they used to break the rocks. So this is how they used to use, right, to use the split the rockers and boulders, even before we have this all no mechanical things, right? So now you see, so you can see that this no these seeds becoming bulged actually, right? So this is not very new for you, but you might have not thought this concept can be applied like this, isn't it? So you can see that these seeds now got bulging, right? So if you see here now, you can see that they are accumulating the water and they are bulging. So here they become transparent, but in a real seeds, what the other seeds, what happens is they become more bulge. So that's what I wanted to explain. So this is one of the special type of diffusion. So here, to really understand what's going in this imbibition, that is special case of diffusion, you need to understand even few of the water water relationship in the water. That is psi W equal to solute potential plus pressure potential. So now we are talking about the water potential. What exactly the water potential here means? So water potential is, when you have certain for example, now this water is there and water has certain seeds. Now this water potential is very less because it has got solutes in it, right? So if you consider the pure water without any solutes, it has water potential more. It means our water potential or chemical potential, right? The potential, the energy that the water molecules can have in the system is what we call it as water potential, right? So what exactly the water potential? So water molecules possess certain kinetic energy. Hey, you would have studied in physics. Every body in the universe has certain kinetic energy in it. So this kinetic energy possessed by this water molecule. So water molecules possess this kinetic energy, and in liquids and gases form, they are in random motion that is both rapid and constant. So what do you see here? So within the water vapor, at the same time at the liquid state, it would be it would be having a random. They'll be displaying some random motion, right? And even would be rapid when it comes to this water molecules, right? So the greater the concentration of water in a system, the greater its kinetic energy or water potential. So we are talking in terms of kinetic energy. So the greater the water concentration in the sense, so within the system you need to have only the water, not other solute particles. So if it has certain solute particles, it means its solute potential is increasing, right? That is psi p is high. If psi p is high, what happens is psi psi w, that is water potential, psi w will be low. So this is a relation you should be drawing, you should be understanding. So within a system, if the water contains more solutes, its water potential will be less, and its solute potential will be high. When the solute potential is high, obviously the water potential will be low. And here you need to understand how the water would move. Okay, So water will always move from higher water potential regions to the lower water potential regions. Are you getting? So here what I'm talking is, so I'm trying to explain this water potential. So water potential is where when you have more water molecules, right? So it has more kinetic energy. So it has more water potential. So once the water has more water potential, always the water tends to move from higher water potential to the lower water potential regions. One such example is this: the seeds has less water potential. It means seeds contain more solutes than the water itself. So outside the seeds you have more water, right? More water molecules, free water molecules, and it has more water potential and more kinetic energy. So they tend to move from this higher water potential to the lower water potential. That's where they diffuse into the seeds, right? So likewise, the movement of these water molecules would be always from higher water potential to the lower water potential. So you need to always draw this type of relation between water potentials and solute potential. So when the water potential, when would be the water potential will be low? When there are more solute potential. When the water potential will be high, when there is less solute potential, right? So this makes this equation. It means the movement of water molecules would be always from higher to lower water potential. This is very important when we talk about the movement of molecules in the xylem, water molecules, how they transport, etc. We'll be talking in the next video. I hope you understand this water potential. We'll stop here. Okay, so we'll continue from the pressure potential. We'll talk about the solute potential and the pressure potential in the next video. I will start with it and we'll try to finish the remaining aspects. Okay, we'll be talking about bulk movement of the molecules and substances, phloem, within the phloem, that is two-way, within the xylem one way. We have symplastic and apoplastic movements, and there would be some corrections in your NCERT textbook also. We'll try to see. Okay, I hope you understood this video and it will be useful for you. So right now you can see that the seeds are almost bulged, right? So the seeds contain more solute, so that, and less water potential, so the water is entering into these seeds. So higher water potential to the lower water potential, right? You can't really memorize this theory, these relationships. So you always have to have certain examples while you deal with this. I hope you enjoyed this class and useful. We'll see you in the 2 p.m. Thank you guys, and take care. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and interaction in the live chat. Thank you.